Welcome to video number 52 in the Using iTrain tutorial series. My name is Bob. In this tutorial we look at grouping conditions together in actions using the OR operator. Welcome back. Hopefully you were able to follow and understand the three actions that we have created so far. The light on, the light off, and the welcome sound action. In all of these actions, there was only a single condition in each of them. But what if we wanted to trigger the action if, for example, any of the feedbacks in the south platforms here turned on? Or what if we wanted the action to trigger only when there were trains in South Platform 3 and in South Platform 2? In other words, how do we combine multiple subconditions? Well, this tutorial is about how we can combine subconditions using things called logical operators. They are the OR and the AND condition types that we briefly saw in tutorial 48. Logical operators allow us to group subconditions together and perform a logical OR on a group or a logical AND on a group. A logical OR operation means that only one of the subconditions listed below the OR operator needs to be true for the output of that group to be true. For the logical AND operation, all of the subconditions listed below the operator need to be true at the same time for the output of the AND group to be true. Let's take a closer look at the OR group. Remember this little animation from tutorial 48? We used it to demonstrate what happens in a condition that is used to test a feedback sensor. We showed the condition as this dotted box here that contains a triangle that represents the test of, in this case, a feedback sensor. And the output of that test feeds into the input of this OR subcondition. And you will recall that the test detects the moment when an event occurs. In this case, it is set up to detect the moment when the feedback sensor turns on, when it changes state from off to on. It's important to understand that the test is not looking to see if the sensor is on, it is detecting the precise moment it turns on when it changes state. It's a subtle but important difference. Looking to see if a sensor is on would be to check the status of the sensor, its steady state. That would provide no timing information because you don't know exactly when you are testing it during that steady state. By detecting the precise moment that the event occurs, indicated by the red edge here, we are detecting exactly when the item changes state. And therefore, iTrain knows precisely when the test occurred. And it uses that timing information to keep control of all of the various operations that it is handling. When we are using OR operations or OR operators, we are only using the events in the conditions. We are not interested in the state or status of a particular object. When we come to the AND operator, you will see that there is a need with an AND operation to be able to interrogate or test the actual state, the steady state of an object. But for OR operations, iTrain only uses the actual event. In this instance, we only had one input to deal with, but we could have several, in which case things would look like this. So here we have the same box representing the condition, and inside we have the OR operator and the tests that are going to it. And this time there are multiple inputs going into this OR operator, and we're grouping all of those inputs together in an OR group. Each of the inputs here would be one of the various types of condition that we can select in the Conditions tab in the Type column. So, for example, we may have one of the inputs looking to see if a feedback has turned on. Maybe another input is looking to see if a feedback has turned off. Or maybe we're looking to see if a train has entered into a block. Or perhaps we're simply looking to see when a relay turns on. So now the condition is looking for when this feedback turns on, or when this feedback turns off, or when a train has entered this block, or when this relay turns on. When one of these events occurs, such as this feedback turning on, the test detects that the event has occurred, that the status has changed from off to on, and therefore the output of that test is true, and the input to the OR group, to the OR operator, is therefore true, and an OR operator only requires one of its inputs to become true for its output to become true. And when that occurs, the condition is met, and that then triggers the execution of the commands listed here, which is to turn on the light. And a similar thing could occur on one of the other inputs. Let's say that this feedback turned off. So the event occurs where it transitions from on to off. The test detects the off, and therefore the output is true. So even though we're going from on to off, because we're testing for off, the output still becomes true. So the input to this OR group is true. Only one input needs to be true for the output of this to be true. The condition is then met and the command executes, and again the light would be turned on. So let's create this in an actual action and see what it looks like. Okay, so here we are in the action editor, and we want to create a new action for the OR group that we just saw. So we'll click on New to create a new action. And of course, the first thing we need to do is give it a name. We'll call it OR group. And now we can create the OR group within the Conditions tab here. So we're going to create an OR operator, and then below it we will have those 4 subconditions that we created in that diagram. So first thing we do is click Append to enter our first item. You'll notice that by default the operator is shown, and it is the OR type of operator. And below this we add the 4 subconditions that we want in the group. So we can click Append again for the next item. We'll double click in the type column here, and the first subcondition we want was a feedback, so we'll enter that. We'll click Append again, and you notice that by default it is used the previous subcondition that we used, which is another feedback, and that is fine. We'll click Append again, double click. This time we want a block, so we'll put a block in, click Append again, and the last one we wanted was to test a relay, wasn't it? So we click that. And now we see we've got the OR operator here, and then below it we have the 4 conditions or subconditions that are going to form the group. And you'll notice that there is a tie bar that ties those 4 subconditions to this OR group. So we can see quite easily which items are part of the group. So we have the 4 items that we want in this group. Now let's define them properly. So this first one, when we click on it, we can then enter the particular feedback that we want to choose. Let's choose self-siding, and we wanted to check when that feedback in self-siding turned on. So we select the on state from the state field here. So that's the first subcondition completed. Go to the next one. Let's choose the feedback in the west block here this time. And this time we wanted to check or to test to see when the feedback turned off. Then we can go to the block. Let's select self-platform 1 as the block, and we want to see when a train enters that block. So we click on the state here, and then we have a list that we can choose from. We will select enter, and we're going to leave it at all trains and all train types. So what this is doing is monitoring South Platform 1 and checking to see when any train or any train type enters that block from both directions, from either direction. When that happens, that event will be true. And then the last item here was this relay. So I've created some relays beforehand. We're going to select one of them. Let's just select relay 3, and we're going to test for when the relay is active. We will talk about relays and the different types in another tutorial. For now, just think of them as switches that can be turned on or off, or active or inactive, by commanding them either through iTrain or directly from a command station. So that is our condition set up. We have a group of 4 subconditions within an OR group. And an OR group just requires that one of these conditions becomes true for the output of that OR group to be true. And in that case, this condition will have been met, and that would then trigger the execution of the commands in the execution tab. So we haven't entered the commands in here yet, so let's do that. So we'll append the first item, and instead of turning on the light, we will actually play that welcome sound again. So we'll go into here, we'll click on type, we'll look for the sound, we'll go down to the sound, select welcome, and we want it to play. So that is the action now completed. Let's click apply and close it down, and as soon as we do that, we will have an active action. We can see it listed here, and it is ticked as active by default. So close this down, and now if we were to click on the feedback to simulate the feedback going on.
Welcome to iTrain.
There we have it. The action has been triggered and we heard the sound. The second condition was to see if this feedback sensor turned off. So if I turn it on by clicking on it, nothing happens. But as soon as I click the feedback again to turn it off,
welcome to iTrain.
There we have it. The action has been triggered and the sound played. The third action was to detect if a train entered South Platform 1. So let's simulate that. We'll take a train, place it onto the east block. the direction arrow is pointing this way in a clockwise direction. The train is in forward gear. And let's simulate that we are driving the train manually. So we go into manual mode, and then we can increase the throttle. So the train would then be moving out along here, and we simulate it going into South Platform 1 by
Welcome to iTrain.
clicking on the feedback center, and as soon as that train has entered that block, the sound got triggered. So our third condition also triggers the sound. Now for the relay, I've forgotten to put the relay onto the switchboard here. So let me quickly do that. We'll go into this switchboard and we'll select a location for the relay. Let's place it here and then click on the relay symbol, double click it to apply in here. Click on this again. We'll go up to here and select relay 3 from here, and this will be a virtual relay because we're not going to give it any sort of address. It's just going to be a relay that we can activate or deactivate actually on the layout here. We'll click OK, we'll click apply and save and OK from there. And now we have this relay on the switchboard. It is currently in the active state because it is yellow. That will not have triggered the action yet because it is already in the active state. And remember, the condition is checking for a change of state. So if I click on this relay now to turn it off, again nothing happens. But as soon as I turn it on, that triggers the action. Forgive me for introducing the relay now when we haven't really talked about them, but we will be using these relays when we create the action that performs the runaround loop. And I will explain more about how these relays work and how you can use them. So that is the OR operator. It allows us to combine conditions such that when any of those conditions become true, the output of the condition becomes true, and that will then trigger the execution of the commands in the execution tab. So what if we want an action that does not execute unless all of these subconditions are true at the same time? Well, to do that, we would use the AND operator. And that is the subject of the next tutorial. So I hope to see you then. I hope this was useful, and thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.